A 5-year-old boy stumbled into a biker bar at midnight, tears streaming down his face, whispering that he'd been locked in a closet since yesterday. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club was having their weekly meeting when the door creaked open. Every conversation stopped. Standing in the doorway was a tiny boy in pajamas, covered with cartoon dinosaurs, his feet bare and bleeding from walking on broken glass and gravel. His name was Marcus, though none of them knew that yet. The boy's eyes darted around the room full of leather-clad giants searching for something or someone. His small body shook violently, not from the cold October night, but from pure terror. The child's blonde hair was matted with sweat, and dark stains marked where tears had dried on his dirt-covered cheeks. Jake, the club president, was the first to move. The 6'4" former Marine dropped to one knee, making himself smaller, less threatening. His voice came out soft, nothing like the commanding bark his brothers were used to hearing. "Hey there, little man. You're safe now. What's your name?" The boy's lips trembled as he tried to speak. Marcus, he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Marcus, that's a strong name. I'm Jake. Can you tell me why you're here all alone at night?" What Marcus said next made every hardened biker in that room see red. "My stepmom locked me in the closet yesterday morning. She said I was bad because I spilled juice. I finally got out when she left to go drinking." The rage in that room was palpable. These men had seen violence, had lived it, but a child being tortured hit differently. Bear, the club's enforcer, stood up so fast his chair crashed backward, his massive fists clenched as he headed for the door. "Where does she live?" Bear growled. "I'll handle this right now." "Sit down," Jake commanded, never taking his eyes off Marcus. "First, we take care of the boy." Jake gently examined Marcus's feet, finding cuts and splinters from his desperate journey. The child had walked nearly 2 miles in the dark, barefoot, to reach the only place that had lights on at midnight. How he even knew to come here was a mystery. "Are you hungry, Marcus?" Jake asked. The boy nodded eagerly. "She didn't give me food in the closet, just a bucket to go potty in." Doc, the club's medic who'd served as an Army corpsman, brought over the first aid kit. As he cleaned Marcus's wounds, he noticed old bruises in various stages of healing. This wasn't the first time. This had been going on for a while. "Marcus, where's your real mom and dad?" Jake asked carefully. Fresh tears spilled down the boy's cheeks. "Daddy died in a car accident. Mommy's in heaven, too. She got sick last year. Now it's just me and Janet." Janet. They had a name. "Does Janet hurt you often?" Doc asked while bandaging the worst cuts. Marcus nodded, then quickly shook his head. "She said if I tell anyone, she'll put me in the ground with Mommy." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. These men had heard death threats before, had made them, but threatening to murder a 5-year-old child was beyond their comprehension of evil. Razor, the club's tech expert, was already on his laptop. "Got her. Janet Morrison, 847 Pine Street, married Marcus's father 2 years ago. He died 6 months later in that accident the kid mentioned." He paused, reading more. "Interesting. She got a hefty life insurance payout." "And the boy's mother?" Jake asked. "Died of cancer 8 months after the father. No life insurance there, just medical debt." Razor's fingers flew across the keyboard. "But here's the kicker. Marcus inherited his parents' house. It's worth about 300 grand, and Janet's his legal guardian." The pieces fell into place. This wasn't just abuse. This was a woman slowly destroying a child for money. "Should we call the cops?" Tiny asked. Despite his name, he was anything but small. "With what evidence?" Jake responded. "A scared kid's word against his legal guardian? They'll send him right back to her." Marcus had fallen asleep in Jake's arms, exhausted from his ordeal. The sight of this tiny, broken boy trusting them enough to sleep moved these hardened men in ways they couldn't express. "We need more than just his word," Jake said. "We need proof." That's when Marcus stirred and mumbled something that changed everything. "Camera. She doesn't know about Daddy's camera in my room." Jake gently woke the boy. "Marcus, what camera?" "Daddy put it in my room to watch me when he was at work. It's in the teddy bear. Janet doesn't know it still works. The bikers exchanged glances. If there was video evidence of the abuse, everything changed, but they needed to get it without alerting Janet. "Marcus, is Janet home now?" Jake asked. "She went to the bar with her boyfriend. She said she'd be back in the morning to let me out, but I escaped through the closet floor. There's a loose board." This 5-year-old had engineered his own escape by finding a loose floorboard and crawling through the space between floors. The determination and intelligence it took for a child that young to plan and execute an escape was remarkable. "We need to get that camera," Bear said, "tonight, before she gets back." Jake made a decision that would change Marcus's life forever. "Razor, you and Crow go get that camera. Don't leave any trace you were there. Doc, call your sister at Child Services, the one who actually cares about kids. Tiny, get Marcus some real food, and someone find this boy some shoes and proper clothes." And as the club sprang into action, Marcus tugged on Jake's leather vest. "Are you angels?" he asked innocently. Jake almost laughed at the irony. The Iron Wolves were many things, but angels weren't usually on the list. "No, buddy, we're just guys who protect kids who need help." "Janet said nobody would help me. She said nobody cares about bad boys." "You're not bad, Marcus, you're brave. The bravest little man I've ever met." 2 hours later, Razor and Crow returned with a teddy bear and a laptop. What they found on the hidden camera's memory card made even these hardened men sick. Weeks of footage showing Janet's escalating abuse, the closet punishments that lasted days, the withholding of food, the psychological torture of a grieving child who just wanted love. But they found something else too. Janet discussing with her boyfriend how they planned to make Marcus's death look like an accident once some paperwork went through. They were waiting for adoption papers that would make her his permanent legal guardian with full control of his inheritance. "She was going to kill him," Doc said, his voice thick with emotion. "That little boy escaped just in time." The evidence was damning, but they needed to handle this carefully. Jake made the calls. His cousin worked in the district attorney's office. Doc's sister was already on her way with emergency custody papers. Even Officer Thompson, who usually gave the Iron Wolves a hard time, was on board when he saw the evidence. What happens next will expose a dark truth about the foster care system and show why sometimes the scariest-looking people have the biggest hearts. If you're enjoying this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Janet Morrison returned home at 6 a.m. to find her house surrounded by police cars and motorcycles. The look of shock on her face when she saw Marcus safe in the back of a police car was priceless. She tried to run but didn't get far. 50 bikers had formed a perimeter around the block. "That's my son," she screamed as they cuffed her. "You can't take him." "He's not your son," Jake said calmly, "and after what we found on that camera, you'll never see him again." The boyfriend tried to flee through the backyard but ran straight into Bear and Tiny. They didn't touch him. They didn't need to. The sight of 2 massive bikers blocking his path was enough to make him surrender immediately. As Janet was driven away in the police car, she screamed threats at Marcus, proving in front of dozens of witnesses exactly what kind of monster she was. The boy didn't even flinch. He was holding Jake's hand, finally feeling safe. But Marcus's ordeal wasn't over. With no living relatives, he was headed for foster care. The system that had already failed him once by not noticing the abuse was about to shuffle him into another uncertain situation. That's when something extraordinary happened. Jake's wife, Maria, arrived at the scene. She was a pediatric nurse who couldn't have children of her own. She took one look at Marcus and made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. "We'll take him," she told the social worker. "We're licensed foster parents." It was true. Jake and Maria had gotten licensed years ago but had never found the right match. They'd been waiting for a sign, and a brave little boy walking barefoot through the night to find help seemed like a pretty clear one. Marcus looked up at Jake with hope in his eyes. "Really? I can stay with you?" "If you want to, buddy, but no pressure. You've had enough people making decisions for you." Marcus thought for a moment, then nodded. "You saved me, and you have motorcycles. That's cool." The entire club laughed, the tension finally breaking. This little boy who'd been through hell was worried about whether motorcycles were cool. The legal process took months. Janet was charged with child abuse, attempted murder, and fraud. The boyfriend flipped on her immediately, providing more evidence of her plan to kill Marcus for his inheritance. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison. During the trial, Marcus had to testify. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done, but he wasn't alone. The entire Iron Wolves MC sat in the courtroom, a wall of leather and steel supporting a brave little boy. When Janet tried to intimidate him with stares, 50 bikers stared right back. Marcus thrived in Jake and Maria's care. The boy who'd been locked in a closet was finally free to be a kid. He went to therapy, started school, and slowly learned to trust again. The nightmares faded, replaced by dreams of riding motorcycles and being brave like his new dad. The Iron Wolves adopted Marcus as their official mascot. He had his own small leather vest with a special patch, Bravest Wolf. Every Sunday, the club would take him for rides in a special sidecar Jake had installed just for him. The boy who'd been told nobody would ever care about him now had 50 uncles who would move heaven and earth to protect him. On the first anniversary of his escape, Marcus stood in front of the club to tell his story to new members. His voice was strong, no longer the whisper of a terrified child. I was locked in a dark closet, scared and alone, but I remembered what my real daddy told me before he died. He said, brave people aren't the ones who don't feel scared. Brave people are the ones who do what's right even when they're terrified. So I escaped and found help, and I found my family. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. These tough bikers who'd faced down rivals in danger were brought to tears by a 6-year-old's courage. Jake and Maria officially adopted Marcus 2 years later. The courtroom was packed with bikers who cheered when the judge made it official. Marcus Jake Thompson had a real family, a permanent home, and a future that didn't involve closets or fear. But the story doesn't end there. Marcus's bravery inspired the Iron Wolves to create a foundation helping abused children. They partnered with local law enforcement and child services to identify kids in dangerous situations. Sometimes the system needs a push from people who aren't afraid to get involved. They bought the house next to their clubhouse and turned it into a safe house for children in emergency situations. It's staffed 24/7 by volunteers, many of them bikers who understood what it was like to come from broken homes. The first thing visitors see is a photo of 5-year-old Marcus, barefoot and brave, next to a plaque that reads, "One child's courage changed everything." Marcus is 12 now. He's a straight-A student who wants to be a lawyer to help other kids. He still rides with the Iron Wolves every Sunday, but now he's teaching younger kids in the program how to be brave. He tells them about the night he escaped, not to scare them, but to show them that there's always hope. "I thought nobody would help a bad boy," Marcus tells them, "but I wasn't bad, I was hurt, and when I found the courage to ask for help, angels in leather showed up to save me." He always laughs at that last part because he knows the Iron Wolves aren't really angels. They're something better. They're proof that heroes come in all forms, that family isn't always blood, and that sometimes the scariest-looking people have the softest hearts. The closet that once trapped Marcus is gone now. Janet's house was sold, and the money put in trust for Marcus's college education. But Marcus doesn't need that money as much as he needs what he found that October night, a family who chose him, who fought for him, and who showed him that he was worth saving. Every time the Iron Wolves see a child in need, they remember the barefoot boy who stumbled into their bar at midnight. They remember how one small act of courage from a desperate child changed not just his life, but theirs too. Marcus didn't just escape a closet that night, he found his way home. Some stories end with happily ever after, but this one ends with something better, happily ever after with motorcycles. Because every little boy who's been locked in the dark deserves to ride free in the sun, surrounded by people who will never let anyone hurt him again. That's the power of courage. One 5-year-old boy's desperate escape didn't just save his own life. It created a movement that has saved hundreds of other children. All because Marcus was brave enough to push through a loose floorboard and walk barefoot through the night to find help. Sometimes heroes wear capes, sometimes they wear leather, and sometimes they wear dinosaur pajamas and have more courage in their tiny bodies than most adults find in a lifetime. Thanks for watching this incredible true story. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing tales and click on one of the 2 stories on your screen right now for another adventure that will restore your faith in humanity.